Welcome back, guys, to episode 2 of PUBG Tactical Tutelage, where we attempt to apply real-world tactics and battle drills and stuff in the context of PUBG. In this episode, we're going to cover some things I skipped in episode 1 about making entry into rooms, choosing which side of the door you go on, and my general recommendation for which way the first man in the stack goes when he makes his entry. Second, we're going to look at a couple of quick individual tactical errors you might not be aware you're making that could be getting you shot, and third, we're going to respond to a question I got on episode 1 about working in duos. We'll look at two-man room clearing, going high-low, movement in hallways, and stairwells. So bandage up and boost or whatever, and let's get going. So, when it comes to choosing which side of the door you stack up on when we're going to make entry into a room, in PUBG, if you're opening the door to make entry, you want to be on the hinge side, so opposite the door handle. For some reason, all PUBG doors are push doors because it maybe occurs in a universe in which door jams are an alien technology or something, which means that if you're opening the door, it's always going to open away from you. So we typically won't need to worry about outward opening doors. The principle here is to take the path of least resistance that allows you to see as much of the room as possible as soon as possible. There's actually an ambush opportunity in PUBG that I don't see used very much to shoot through the door when people stack on the wrong side, especially with something like a DP-28 or whatever that can break a door down quickly. You'll notice here, if the opponent is posted up on the hinge side inside the room, and you're stacked up on the knob side when the door opens, your team has to run through the fatal funnel a long ways, while this cheap bastard is cackling away maniacally behind his DP and firing rounds through the door. This principle can make the near corner for the guy that button hooks around that door really awkward. It's super tight, but it still needs cleared. However, many PUBG buildings have furniture in the way of that corner or like a huge window right there that makes that less likely, and there are a limited number of building templates, especially on Erangel, so it's not hard to learn which houses are going to encourage that kind of thing. There is a caveat here. If you enter a door that someone exited, leaving it open outward, basically you want to enter on the handle side, so that's the path of least resistance this time, so you don't have to go around that door, you just go straight in the room.
One clip.
Down. Alright, let's talk about a couple of non-obvious individual tactical errors that might be getting you killed, and these both involve use of cover. First, it's really easy, especially in first-person perspective, to expose your muzzle to areas you can't see by committing the error of crowding your cover. Because you lose depth perception on a flat screen, it can be easy to get so close to your cover that you're breaking the plane of that cover, sticking the barrel of your gun past the edge of the corner or whatever you're using, giving any opponent around the corner time to line up and focus on your location. Now, unlike real life, this isn't so much of a problem in PUBG because people are more mobile than they are in real life. I mean, you'll have people taking a flying leap out from the corner to avoid the defender's aim, but where it is a big problem is when firing from windows or elevated locations while attempting to stay hidden, which happens a lot. It's tempting to belly up to the windowsill, as it gives you the widest view, but it's a better idea to stand off your window a good bit, allowing some extra room to hide your muzzle from observers you can't see. I'll eventually do an episode on keyholing, especially in urban settings where I'll deal with this in more detail, but for now, the general principle is don't crowd your cover, just back up a little bit. So, coming around your corner in a way that doesn't expose your muzzle is referred to as pieing your corner or cutting the pie. If you look at this from overhead, I want you to primarily notice two things. One, Orange Man here is standing off his cover, making sure not to crowd it and expose his muzzle around the corner. The only people that could see his muzzle are people he can also see and shoot in the face. Second, he's progressively taking in more of the area around the cover, processing a slice of the pie at a time, and once that's clear, taking the next slice. Now in real life this is usually a pretty slow process, but especially in PUBG it doesn't have to be. As long as you don't crowd your cover and make sure to clear all the way around the corner, you're cutting the pie, even if that happens like as you're walking past it. Alright, so I had a question on the last video about room clearing in pairs or as a duo. If you haven't seen that video, go watch it because it's going to be easier to talk about the differences than it would be to try to go over all the principles we talked about in the first video again. The two big differences here are going to be the near corner rule and how far we penetrate into any given room. With the full 4-man team, the first man through the door is technically supposed to ignore opponents that aren't in his nearest corner until that corner is cleared. Clear your near corner first, right? With only 2 men clearing though, number 1 man no longer has 3 men coming in behind him to clear up the middle, so it probably makes more sense to engage the first target seen, although he still needs to keep moving and get to that near corner. Also, keep in mind this is all assuming we had to get in this room immediately for some reason. It would probably be better, especially with only 2 men, and if contact is expected or known inside the room, to pie around the door frame and clear as much of the room as possible from the outside before you ever go in, assuming all other factors are equal and you're not taking fire from elsewhere while you're hanging out outside the door. Secondly, in the 4-man clear, the set of points of domination are kind of in that L shape. It's often the best. Of course, this varies with the shape of the specific room and whatever, but it's a good, simple ideal to aim at. In the 2-man clear, this can often be less advantageous because we don't need so much room for 4 overlapping fields of fire, we only have 2. This is especially true when entering on the short side wall rather than the long side. So when you're entering a door that's on the shorter wall of the room, rather than entering on a door that's on the longer side of the room, the shape of the room then changes as you're entering, right? One way you're looking down a longer room, one way you're looking into a shallower room. Another really effective tactical drill that can be used in pairs is what's referred to as high-low. Going high-low refers to the front man on any piece of cover changing his level to be lower than the man behind, who's then able to engage over the top of front man. This is useful for getting 2 rifles into the fight in a situation in which usually you'd only have the one. A variation on this involves the rear man standing off the cover a good ways, and even though I took a giant dump on it earlier, the rear man in PUBG can always take a flying leap out of cover like an absolute donkey to draw fire, while the front man pies the corner. When moving through hallways or alleys as a pair, you're always going to be giving up cover of some angle, so which way the second man looks is going to depend on the environment and where contact's expected, and generally, covering the rear makes the most sense unless and until a doorway or perpendicular hallway or alley or something is encountered. But there's one scenario we can talk about real quick that specifically serves as the site of a lot of ambushes, the T-hall. When approaching a T-shaped intersection, the lead man is going to call that out to the second man, who should be covering the rear or some other angle depending on the environment. T-hall front works as a thing to call out. At this point, 2-man's going to face front and move to the far wall, making sure to pie the small area around the corner from 1 man that 1 man can't see. From here, they're going to stay even with each other and move parallel, cutting the pie on their opposite corners, stopping just short of muzzling each other, when 1 man will call ready. When 2-man is ready, he's going to call move, at which point each man turns hard to clear their near side wall. Now there are other ways of handling T intersections, but I think this one works best in the PUBG environment because you can both see the other person, and it's really simple to implement. Again, the way this works, 1 man calls T-hall front, 2-man moves to the far wall. They both move up and pie their opposite corners. When they reach the intersection, 1 man calls ready, and 2-man calls move. And on move, they both turn hard to finish clearing their near side walls. Alright, last concept for today, working up stairwells. The convenient thing about handling this in the duo episode is that even with a full team, it's probably better to only commit 2 men to this thing at a time, due to the size and limited angles available in a stairwell. It's important to note that fighting up a stairwell is really terrible, just the worst. Opponents at the top of the stairs have all the advantages here, and you have all the disadvantages. If it can be helped, it's best to either completely avoid this, or to find some way to fight down from the top of a building. That said, if you have to do it, this is a good method. 1 man, who's technically in front, but we're trying to stay as close to being like 2 wide as possible, is responsible for the next immediate landing, for looking front. 2-man is responsible for angling up the stairs, looking to clear the stairs themselves as they advance, and then the next landing above. In this example, we've got an opponent in pretty much the worst possible spot, but if Orange Man here is on his game, he at least has a chance of addressing that threat before both of our heroes are ambushed on the landing. Also, don't frag up a stairwell. Just don't do it. Okay guys, I promise I'm going to try to get these shorter as we go, but I had a bunch of concepts for you this week that were all related, and I wanted to get the questions from episode 1 answered too. So the big takeaways from this episode are 1, don't crowd your cover, and 2, when working in a buddy team or a duo, try to keep as many angles as possible covered. Give these a try and let me know how this works for you. I'm always looking for feedback from other players on what's making the transition from real world to PUBG and what isn't. If you'd like to see more of these episodes, like and subscribe to fuel my budding narcissism. Thanks, and I'll see you next time when I'll probably come up with a clever sign-off line like, I don't know, keep your mags stuffed, or Viva los pollos, or something.
He's in that bush.